Hey everyone, I'm Joe Cherries, and this is my attempt at a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon Scarlet using only fighting type Pokémon. A friend who goes by the name Munchie suggested I do a fighting type run because, and I quote, Karate Chops, Block, and Makuhita died, ... XD, ... Shrug, IDK. So for that reason, I am obviously doing this run. Fighting types tend to have great offensive stats, with most of them being physical powerhouses. Scarlet has a lot of awesome fighting type Pokemon that I am extremely excited to use. I think the one I'm most excited to try is Annihilate. We won't be using any of the Area 0 Pokemon in this run, and besides, most of these Pokemon are only available in the post game. And obviously we can't use Koraidon as he's not available until the scripted fight after the final boss battle. My rules for this run are, I can only catch the first encounter I find of each unique evolutionary line. Once a Pokemon faints, it is permanently boxed, but I might mess this up once in the video, so ignore that. No items in battle, no overleveling past the next boss's ace. This includes gym leaders, team star bosses, and the final Elite Four member. And we must play as if set mode is on at all times. Without further ado, let's begin our fighting adventure. We gain control of our character, head downstairs, talk to mom, then head back upstairs, and wait, didn't we master walking upstairs in video games in like 2010? What is this nonsense? Once again, we put on this awful hat, this time white, and go outside to get our starter. Unlike last run, we actually get to use our starter as Quaxly's final evolution is a fighting type. Now I know Quaxly isn't a fighting type yet, but in these type of runs, if the final evolution is a fighting type, I will allow myself to use that Pokemon even before it evolves. We name our Quaxly Cataquack, and if you can guess the naming scheme before I get my Flamigo, then you are a champion and I will give you a high five. We then defeat Nemona in the opening battle and head to get our next Pokemon, Apami. We catch it and name an Amp, and much like Quaxly, it's not a fighting type quite yet. We then find our bike from the past, give it a sandwich, and we're ready to get a few more encounters. First is a Ralts that I catch and name Marlovely. And honestly, I have no clue where this thing goes. Later in the run, I look for it in my box and it's just gone, so I have no clue what I did with it. A little down the path from there, we find our Flamigo, and this should give away the naming scheme. We name it Birdo. Right before we enter the school, we have to do our second rival fight with Nemona. She leads off with Fuecoco as we lead off with Cataquack. We start the battle off with a water gun that does about 75% to the Fire Croc. In response, Fuecoco uses Leer and lowers our defense. This means the second water gun could easily finish it off. Up next is Palmy, and like a big cheater, she terrestrializes without us even having the ability to do it yet. With full health, I feel safe staying in here, so I do, and hit a water gun that does less than half. A Thundershock then does massive damage to Cataquack, taking him all the way down to 15 HP. We then switch out to Amp, who takes just under half from the resisted Thundershock on the switch. But the only reason it did so much damage was because of a critical hit. The following turn, I use a quick attack that takes Palmy down to the orange. A non-crit Thundershock then takes us down to 6 HP, but it doesn't look like another quick attack will get the kill, so we have to swap out here, and I go into Birdo, who surprisingly tanks a super effective Thundershock very well. We then outspeed, go for a double kick, well, a single kick, as only one hit is needed to finish off this battle. I guess I should have switched out into Birdo right away. I didn't really think it'd be able to take Thundershock that well. Now I could get a couple more encounters before the first gym, but honestly, Katie's going to be very easy as we have Birdo. We obviously lead with Birdo as she leads off with Nimble. Nimble obviously stands no chance and gets one shot by an air cutter. Her second Pokemon, Tarantula, suffers the same exact fate. Her ace, Teddiursa, is a bit tankier, so it's going to take more than one hit to kill this thing. But honestly, with no damage on us yet, the Teddiursa can't do anything to us, so we take it down with a combination of an air cutter and a wing attack. This earns us a very easy first gym badge. Sorry Katie, Birdo made this one easy mode. After this gym, we head to get our next couple of encounters. The first encounter we find is a Makuhita, who we catch and named Bruiser. The next encounter we find is a Mankey, who we also catch and name Ukiki. But unfortunately, it's level 19, so he has to go in the box until the level cap goes up. Right next to Mankey, we can also find a Shroomish, who we can also catch, and this one we name Nifty. This guy is also over the level cap, so I'll be putting him in the box for now as well. While leveling up to face Brassius, Cataquack evolves into a Quaxwell. With all these catches and upgrades, we're finally ready to face the next gym leader, Brassius, the man with a whip. He leads off with a Petalil as we lead off with our early game carry, Birdo. Birdo goes to work right away, outspeeding and getting a clean one-shot on the Petalil. Brassius then sends out Anxiety Olive, and this thing doesn't stand a chance as well, going down to a single wing attack. This leaves only Brassius' final Pokemon, the Grass Terra type Sudowoodo, who he jokingly calls Truly Woodo, which is pretty cringe, honestly. Obviously, our bird is faster than this rock tree, so we go for a wing attack that deals about half. Sudowoodo then strikes back with a neutral rock throw that deals pretty weak damage overall. A second wing attack next turn just misses out on the KO, but Sudowoodo just goes for a resisted Trailblaze that doesn't even take Birdo below half. Even with the speed boost, the tree is still too slow to outspeed our bird, so we take it out next turn with a third wing attack and win the battle. Honestly, playing with Flamigo early game makes it feel extremely easy. If you ever just want to fly through the early game yourself, just find yourself a Flamigo. After earning this gym badge, our level cap raises up to 21, so now I can add Ukiki to the team. With this level cap, Amp evolves into an awesome Palmo, and then, by running in circles like a crazy person with Amp by our side, we can evolve it again into a Palmot. While wandering around, I also find a Riolu, who I catch and name Metal Mario. Okay, now if you don't know the naming scheme, I'm not sure how to help you. A little down the line, we also find a Monotype that we catch and name Yoga Man. Next in our way is Giacomo, and this man is not very challenging. He's a dark type user, and we're a fighting type trainer. Giacomo leads off with Pawniard as we lead off with Amp. Pawniard is quad weak to fighting type attacks, so a single low kick is enough to finish him off. Giacomo then sends out his last Pokemon. Like every other Team Star boss, it's the Starmobile. Each Starmobile is Monotype, so this one is a dark type. Annoyingly, the Starmobile has Intimidate, so it lowers Amp's attack as it enters. After lowering our attack with Intimidate, it then goes for a Metal Sound and lowers our special defense 2 stages. Our low kick then does about a fourth to the Starmobile even with the attack drop. Next turn the car goes for a Swift that deals less than half as we respond with a second low kick taking it below half. Based on the damage from last turn, even a crit Swift wouldn't kill us, so we can afford to stay in another turn. And I was correct, as the Starmobile does go for Swift and does get a crit, leaving us on just 7 HP as a third low kick hits the car into the red. Obviously, with this thing outspeeding us, we can't stay in now, so we switch out into Cataquack, who is tickled by a Swift on the switch. The following turn, the car goes for a Metal Sound to lower our special defense 2 stages. We then hit a low sweep that barely misses out on the KO. And we're not in danger to a crit from anything, so after a Snarl takes us down to the orange, we can easily finish this thing off with one last low sweep. With the Pokemon we have, we've had the type advantage with the first 3 battles, but that won't be true going forward, which means this run will get much harder. Alright, it's encounter time again. First thing we run into is a Paldean Tauros, who we catch and name Bully. We add him to the party. After teaching Metal Mario a secret handshake solidifying our friendship, he decides it's time to evolve, and he turns into a beastly Lucario, who I plan to use a ton in this run. On one of the beaches right outside of Levincia, I find a Crabrawler who I catch and name Sidestepper. I send him off to the box, and now I'm ready to face the next gym leader, Iono. As we arrive, we are ambushed by our rival, who asks us to fight. We literally say no, and they still make us battle anyway. She leads off this battle with Rockruff as I lead off with Amp. We go for a dig turn 1, putting us underground as Rockruff just uses the double team to raise its evasion. But that double team was for nothing as we come up from dig and get a one-hit KO on the Rock Pup. She then sends out a Pawmi that she still hasn't evolved for some reason, which means Amp, who is 2 evolutionary stages ahead of it, can easily destroy it with a single dig. Outlast is her ace, Crocolore. She terrestrializes for double stab on her fire moves. We then dig underground as the Fire Croc just misses a yawn. The dig then hits and does a little more than half, and the Crocolore now connects with its yawn. Because dig is a 2-turn move and we're going to fall asleep next turn, I can't go for dig here. So I just go for a bite, which deals pretty weak damage, but it does get the flinch as Amp falls asleep. I stay in to see how much damage the Croc does to us, and it does a ton, so we have to switch out now. And now I have to admit my mistake. While trying not to overlevel my team, I had most of them in the box, so I began this battle with only Amp and Bully in my party. And Bully is extremely underleveled, so this is not good, and we might have to do a reset here. We switch out into Bully, who takes a ton of damage from Incinerate, going down to this 12 HP. We then hope that we outspeed, and luckily we do go for a double kick, but we miss out on the KO. Oh no, it looks like we're gonna reset for sure. But wait, Crocolore goes for a yawn. Oh my god, Nemona threw so hard. This is so lucky. I honestly can't believe this happened. Yawn doesn't put us asleep right away, so that means we get to outspeed again next turn and finish out the Croc with a double kick. This was honestly extremely lucky. This is why it is super important to know when and where each mandatory fight is in a Nuzlocke, because I was completely unprepared for this fight and it almost cost me the run. After that near-death experience, we're now ready to face the third gym leader, Iono, the Electric Streamer. Iono leads off with Wattrel as we lead off with Metal Mario. Now you'll notice that I don't mention natures too much, as I don't find them to be super important overall. But Metal Mario's minus attack nature is 100% the reason we miss out on the KO with our Rock Tomb. The bird then strikes back with a pretty weak spark, but it gets the paralysis, which we cure with our held Cherry Berry. The following turn, I use a priority vacuum wave to finish off the Watro. Her next Pokemon out is Bellibolt. We take this chance to set up a Combine as Bellibolt hits with a Spark and gets the paralysis. Spark only has a 30% chance to paralyze, and this happened twice in a row, which means it was about a 9% chance to happen, which is extremely unlikely. With our speed cut because of paralysis, the Bellibolt can now outspeed us and hit us with a Spark, taking us down to just 14 HP. We then strike back with a strong Aura Sphere that deals about 75%. But now that the Bellibolt outspeeds, we have to switch. We get a free switch out as Amp has the Volt Absorb ability, meaning it takes no damage from electric type attacks. We then outspeed this thing so we can dig underground, and then next turn, after it just misses a water gun, we can kill it with that dig. Third out for Iono is Luxio, whose Intimidate lowers our attack annoyingly. We outspeed and dig underground as Luxio misses a bite. To my surprise, even with the attack drop, we still get a clean one-shot on the Luxio, which brings out our final Pokemon, Mismagius, who she terrestrializes into an electric type, and because of its levitate ability, we can't hit it with ground type moves. We're faster than the Mismagius, so we can outspeed it and go for a bite, but now we can see the effects of the Intimidate drop as it does pretty weak damage. We also get pretty lucky as we get a flinch on the first turn. Next turn we go for another bite, but we aren't as lucky as Iona and we miss out on our 9% chance of a double flinch. Mismagius then responds with a Confuse Ray on us, but we are prepared for this with a held Person Berry that cures our confusion. A third bite then takes the Hack Ghost below half HP as a second Confuse Ray hits, and this time we stay confused. The following turn we break through confusion for another bite and take the Ghost to about a quarter health. The Ghost then strikes back with a Hex that does about a third to us. I look over my options and honestly I don't think it would be very wise to switch, so I decide to stay in and risk it for the biscuit. We're hoping to break through confusion, and we do, hitting a bite that takes the Mismagius down to the red. Now we have to avoid a crit Hex, unless we get a flinch that is, as our luck has truly turned around in this battle. But right as I say that, our luck ends on the next turn as we hit ourselves in confusion, which means we absolutely have to avoid the crit Hex now, and luckily we do to survive on 7 HP. Alright Amp, please break out of confusion now. Unfortunately, he doesn't, so we have to hopefully not hit ourselves again. Amp then comes through in the clutch, not getting confused and hitting a final bite to finish off this battle. Honestly, looking back at this footage, what I could have done much better was switch out into Cataquack, which would have healed both the confusion and the attack drop on my Amp. Then, it would bait out a Charge Beam so I could switch back into Amp and get the heal from the Volt Absorb ability. But obviously, when you're looking back at these things, it's always much easier than when you're sitting there in the heat of battle. With no encounters between here and the next boss battle, we can head to face Mela of Team Star. Much like my fairy video, I brought a lead that has Rain Dance. Mela leads off with Torkoal as we lead off with Cataquack. Torkoal's ability Drought sets up the sun right away, but Torkoal is obviously an extremely slow mon, so on our first turn, we can outspeed and use Rain Dance to cancel out the sun and set up the rain. Torkoal then hits us with a pathetic Flame Wheel that deals only 6 damage. After that attack, Mela then brags about how that attack was so awesome and how it was for the rest of Team Star. Mela, you literally did 6 damage. With the rain up, Cataquack can easily win this battle by himself, sweeping Mela's 2 Pokemon without any issues at all. Cataquack finishes the battle off at above half health, showing you how bad Mela really is. Now, I don't usually talk about the Titans in my videos because they're usually pretty easy, but something funny happened while I was doing Orthworm. The damn Titan decides that he's going to stare at this wall instead of breaking it. This was an actual soft lock. I literally had to close my game and restart it to continue playing. The funniest thing to me was that the game's weather mechanic was still working, so randomly, while this thing is staring at the wall like a dummy, it just starts raining. Classic Generation 9. With those shenanigans over, we have a few more encounters to get out of the way. First, we find a Phalanx who we catch and name Wiggler. And it's a shame that Phalanx is such a mediocre Pokemon because it has one of my favorite nicknames. We then run into a Krogunk who we catch and name Kleptoad. We add it to the party and send Tauros to the box. Immediately after catching Kleptoad, Ukiki decides it's time to evolve into a Primeape, giving it a huge stat boost. Alright, now it's time to take on Kofu, the man who invents his own style and uses water-type Pokemon. Kofu leads off with Falooza as we lead off with Amp, who should be able to carry this gym pretty hard. Amp outspeeds the fish, goes for a Thunder Fang, and takes it down to the deep orange and gets a flinch. What a monster Amp has been this run. This means that next turn a second Thunder Fang can finish off the Psychic Fish. Now you might have noticed I forgot to Terra against the last Pokemon. Well, that was because I forgot. So as Kofu sends out Wugtrio, I now terrestrialize into an electric type for double stab on my electric moves. Rock Trio is a speedy boy, so it does outspeed us and hits us with a headbutt for about 20 damage, but it doesn't get the flinch, so that means that the frail water Pokemon goes down to a double stab Thunderfang. Outlast for Kofu is Crabominable, and despite it being an absolutely terrible choice to terastallize into a pure water type, Kofu just does it anyway. Sometimes Pokemon AI is just so smart. We outspeed and go for a Thunderfang that does massive damage but fails to get the KO. So this means we're going to have to take a Crabhammer, which we do and survive on 14 HP, meaning that next turn we can outspeed again and finish it off with the Thunderfang. This earns us our 4th gym badge, and sometimes a gym is as easy as clicking the same move 5 times in a row. With nothing to do between here and the next challenge, we head straight to face Atticus, the poison boss leader of Team Star. And honestly, this guy is extremely toxic. Now if you watch my fairy type video, you will recall that the only thing Skuntank can hit a steel type with is Sucker Punch. Because of this, we can freely set up to +6 attack and defense with Bulk Up, while the stinky skunk just flounders around doing absolutely nothing useful at all. Now that we're fully set up, an Earthquake cleanly one-shots the Skuntank, Reverum outspeeds us and those Bulldoze, but like a genius, I gave Metal Mario an Air Balloon, meaning it can't be hit by ground-type moves until it's popped. So after the Reverum outspeeds us and pops our balloon, we can just get the easy KO with an Earthquake. Our third is Muck, and this thing doesn't stand a chance as a super effective Earthquake takes it down. Up last is the Navi Starmobile. It outspeeds and hits us with a Flame Charge, but thanks to our boost, we are able to easily tank it and strike back with an extremely strong Earthquake that barely misses out on the one-shot. Now if the car hits a crit on us, there is a potential that it could kill us, but we have to stay in and risk it. Luckily, it doesn't get a crit, so one final Earthquake can win us this battle. This earns us our 3rd Team Star badge. Atticus is just so easy to cheese with a Steel-type Pokemon. With the level cap now increased to 36, we get some huge upgrades to our team. First and foremost, Ukiki levels to level 35 and learns Rage Fist. This means we can run around, use it 20 times, and level up to the level cap of 36 to evolve it into a beastly, absolutely beastly Annihilate. Honestly, I find this thing's Pokedex entry extremely funny. He literally gets so angry that he dies and becomes a ghost. Or at least that's how I read it. Our other upgrade comes when Cataquack reaches level 36 and evolves into a Quaquaval. With these 2 upgrades, we're ready to face off with our best friend, Larry. Unfortunately for Larry, we have a huge advantage in this fight, as fighting is super effective against normal types. Larry leads off with Komala, as we lead off with Metal Mario. On turn 1, we outspeed and use Aura Sphere to take Komala down to just a sliver of health. Komala then responds with a yawn that will put us to sleep on the next turn. A second Aura Sphere then finishes off Komala. Metal Mario then falls asleep, but thanks to Metal Mario's held Chesto Berry, he wakes up. Larry's next Pokemon is the Dunsparce, and if we didn't one-shot the Komala, there's no way we're taking out this tanky girl with one shot. As predicted, the Dunsparce lives in Aura Sphere. It then paralyzes us using Glare. Even a crit drill run shouldn't kill us from full, so we stay in and get hit with a drill run that takes us down to 34 HP. Unfortunately, we then fail to move thanks to paralysis. We're definitely too weak to stay in now. Luckily, we have a free switch. As the Dunsparce goes for the ground move drill run, we can freely switch into Birdo, who is immune. Obviously, Birdo is faster than the Dunsparce, so we take it out with a single kick from our double kick. Outlast is Larry's ace, Staraptor. This thing has Intimidate, but thanks to Birdo's scrappy ability, she doesn't have her attack lowered. Larry's bird is faster than mine and goes for an aerial ace that would have killed us with a crit. Luckily, it doesn't get a crit and just takes us to low HP. We then respond with a double kick that takes the Staraptor to the orange. We have to switch now, so we go into Amp, who will take neutral damage from an aerial ace. But like an absolute genius, Larry predicts my switch and goes for a Facade instead for the maximum damage. Unfortunately for Larry, Amp is faster than his Staraptor, so we finish off the battle with a 2-hit Arm Thrust next turn to earn ourselves Larry's Gym Badge. It makes me a little sad to have to take down the chillest man in the Paldean region, but we need this badge to finish the game. Right after the Larry fight, Nemona challenges us to a battle, and she doesn't even give us a chance to adjust our team. In fact, she wouldn't even give us a chance to heal if it wasn't for Gita being here to remind her that we're weak from the gym fight. Come on, Nemona, please, chill. She leads off with Lycanroc as we lead off with Metal Mario. I have 3 moves to choose from here: Earthquake, Flash Cannon, and Aura Sphere. All 3 are super effective against the Lycanroc. But not thinking about stab bonus or the fact that my special attack is higher, I for some reason pick Earthquake and it fails to get the one shot when Flash Cannon and Aura Sphere would have easily gotten the one shot. Luckily, we don't get punished too hard as Lycanroc's bite doesn't get any flinches, meaning 2 Aura Spheres are able to finish off the pup. Out next for Nemona is Palmo. This time Earthquake is the right move, and it gets a clean one-shot on the Palmo. Third for Nemona is Goomy, and this thing is pretty dang weak. We stay in a hidden Aura Sphere for about 75% as Goomy uses Water Pulse and gets the confusion, but we don't want to be in with Metal Mario anyway when Skeledirge comes out, so we wanted to switch and we go out into Cataquack, who takes us 6 damage from a weak attack. We then finish off the Gooey Dragon with an Aqua Step and raise our speed. It's now time for our final Pokemon, Skeledirge. But honestly, we got this one in the bag. After she terrestrializes, we go for an Aqua Step that does over half, and Skeledirge hits us with a resisted Torch Song that gets a boost, but it won't get the chance to use that boost, as next turn, another Aqua Step from us can easily finish off the Singing Croc, winning us this rival battle. As a reward for winning this battle, Klepto decides it's time to evolve into a Toxicroak. This is an awesome reward for winning this fight. Gita, what are you doing? Why are you just staring into the void? Did you not see my Pokemon just evolve? What is wrong with Gita? In this playthrough, another incredibly silly thing happened. While I was exploring and gathering TMs, I tried to get on Koraidon, and he was just invisible. Like, straight up invisible. I tried getting off, I tried getting back on, and he was still invisible. He just refused to load. And look how super weird it looks as I ride around. Honestly, this reminds me of an old school gaming cheat where you could make things invisible, like horses or cars, and your character would just be floating there as you drove or rode around. Alright, that's enough nonsense for now. It's time for another gym battle. So we head up the mountain to face Rhyme, the spooky gym leader. What makes her so spooky, you ask? Well, she likes double battles, the scariest form of Pokemon battling. As always, Rhyme leads off with her Mimikyu and Bayonet. Our leads are Metal Mario and Amp for this fight. Mimikyu and Bayonet decide to double team Metal Mario with priority Shadow Sneaks. This takes him down to 55 HP before we can even use a move. Amp then uses Crunch on Bayonet and it survives with just a sliver, as Metal Mario then uses a Dark Pulse to break Mimikyu's disguise. Not wanting to get double Shadow Sneaked again, I have to switch out Metal Mario. We switch out into Cataquack, and as predicted, Cataquack gets hit with 2 priority Shadow Sneaks on the switch. Amp then goes for a Crunch on Mimikyu that I thought would finish it off, but I was very wrong and it survives in the orange. With Cataquack, I select priority Aqua Jet, hoping my move will go first, but the Bayonet out-priorities me and hits a Shadow Sneak on Amp before the Aqua Jet can finish him off. Mimikyu then uses a weak Slash on Amp before it goes down to a second Crunch. Rhyme now sends out her final 2 Pokemon, Houndstone and Toxtricity. We need to make sure that Houndstone doesn't get a chance to attack, because a Play Rough would finish off either of my Pokemon. An Aqua Jet deals about a third of the Houndstone, and a follow-up Crunch from Amp gets a crit and finishes off the good boy. Toxtricity then goes for a Discharge, which heals Amp up but gets the KO on Cataquack. I was honestly thinking Cataquack could survive this hit, or that it might not even go for it because Amp was on the battlefield, but I was very much mistaken. Rest in peace, Cataquack. I then send Metal Mario out in place of our falling comrade. Thanks to the Omni Boost from the crowd, Toxicity now outspeeds Amp. It goes for a Hyper Voice that takes both of my teammates to the red, but they both live, which means a Crunch and a Dark Pulse combo next turn is enough to easily finish off the Toxtricity and get us our 6th gym badge. Amp's attack boost from the crowd would have most likely allowed him to one-shot the Houndstone with no problem. This means we could have switched out Cataquack into anyone else on my team and not lost a teammate in this fight. Hindsight is always 20/20. We will miss you, Cataquack. With Cataquack now dead, I replace him with Tauros. In between here and the next gym, there is another Nemona battle, but honestly, this one was extremely boring and has nothing to talk about, so let's go right to the next gym, which is led by the Psychic type master, Tulip. Tulip's lead is Farafrig as we lead off with Metal Mario. On the first turn, we set up a Calm Mind, raising both our special attack and special defense. Farafrig then strikes back with a neutral Zen Headbutt that does around half. A Dark Pulse is then enough to get the clean one-shot on the weird Pokemon next turn. Out second for Tulip is Gardevoir. But we outspeed this thing and get a clean one-shot with our Stab super effective Flash Cannon. Tulip then sends out our third Pokemon, Espathra. And this thing is super speedy. It outspeeds us, goes for a Psychic, and gets a crit that takes us down to 1 HP. But we're luckier than a crit because we get the Friendship Roll, meaning that Metal Mario refuses to faint because he doesn't want us to be sad. What a strange thing to say. This brings out Tulip's final Pokemon, Flagorgis. I'm not sure if a Dark Pulse will be enough to get a one-shot on this, so I have to switch. I switch out into Ukiki. On the switch, our Ghost Monkey has to tank a Moonblast that takes us all the way down to this 23 HP. But luckily, we live. And next turn, we're able to outspeed, and thanks to taking a hit already, Rage Fist is now 100 base power, meaning it can easily finish off the flower and win us this battle. This is the first time I've ever had a Pokemon hang on because of friendship, and it was pretty clutch by Metal Mario. Now you're not going to believe this, but the next gym was actually extremely easy. All we did was terrestrialize Ukiki for double stab on our fighting moves, then cleanly outsped and one-shot every single one of Grusha's Pokemon with a single close combat each. The defense drops don't matter if none of the Pokemon get to attack you. I really do wish that Grusha was a little bit more challenging, but what can you do? We have 2 more Team Star bases to take down before we can head on to the Elite Four. The first of which is Ortega, who uses Fairy types, giving him the advantage over us. Ortega does have one pretty big weakness though, and that's that his full team is physical attackers. With our strategy, we'll have to dodge a few crits, but honestly, I think it's the best strategy we have to get through Deathless. Ortega leads off with Azumarill as we lead off with Metal Mario. On turn 1, we go for an Iron Defense to raise our defense 2 stages. Azumarill then goes for a Charm, lowering our attack 2 stages, which is totally fine as we have built Metal Mario to be a special attacker. Next turn, we set up a second Iron Defense to get to +4 defense, as a Play Rough from the Fairy Water Pokemon does about 31 damage. And by about, I mean exactly 31 damage. The next turn, we finish up our defense setup with a third Iron Defense. We then get hit with an Aqua Tail, and because it doesn't crit, it doesn't do much damage. With our defense maxed out, we now go for a Flash Cannon that deals close to half, as a Play Rough knocks us below half. The next turn, another Flash Cannon takes Azumarill to just a sliver. Azumarill then fails to get another crit as we fall to 41 HP. A final Flash Cannon can finally finish off the Easter egg shaped Pokemon, and this brings out her next Pokemon, Wigglytuff, who is honestly more like Wiggly Chump, am I right? Sorry, that joke was absolutely awful, but this thing does go down to a single Flash Cannon. Third for Ortega is Darkspun, and I made a mistake by not using my Resto Chesto on Wigglytuff, so I actually have to dodge one more crit from this Darkspun. But we do avoid it, so now we can rest and heal the foe with our Resto Chesto. And if you don't know what Resto Chesto is, it's when you use rest to fall asleep and then a Chesto Berry to wake yourself up. Another Play Rough then deals less than 20 damage to us as we get a clean one-shot with a Flash Cannon. The last Pokemon out is of course the Starmobile, as with all of these bases. And honestly, this thing isn't much to a threat to us even with crits now. So 3 Flash Cannons later and we've earned the 4th Team Star badge. Also, look at this picture. Look at how Ortega is looking at our character. He is definitely into our character. Before heading off to face Area for the final badge, we have a couple things we gotta do. First off, we find a Hawlucha that we catch and name Rock Hawk. Now you might know the naming scheme, but if you could tell me specifically which game Rock Hawk is from, extra bonus points to you. Well, regardless of if you know or not, I send Birdo to the box and put Rock Hawk into my party. We also finish off the last Titan, and this story with Arvin is just so cute. It just brings a tear to your eye watching him slowly bring his dog back to life. After totally not crying at all, I had to get the final encounter of the run, a Heracross. We catch it and name it Buzzy Beetle. We add him to the party, sending Bully the Tauros to the box. Alright, now it's time to face Eri in the Fighting Mirror match. She leads off with Toxicroak as I lead off with Metal Mario. We outspeed the Frog and get a clean one-shot with a quad super effective Psychic. Out next is Passimian, and this thing has close combat, so we need to switch. We go out into Okiki, who is immune to close combat. With a Seed Bomb now incoming, we switch out into Rock Hawk, who resist it. We then go for a Flying Press that just misses out on the KO on the damned monkey. It then goes for a close combat that takes us down to half and lowers its defense. With the Passimian being so low, we can finish it off with a U-turn, which will allow us to get a free switch out before her next Pokemon. We send out Ukiki as she sends out some terrible Ukiki imposter. We then Terra into a pure fighting type so that we will not take super effective damage from ghost moves. We use Shadow Claw that leaves the Annihilate with just a sliver, and then Eri literally screams like a crazy person at us and goes for a Rage Fist, which would have gotten the one-hit KO if we didn't Terra, but we did, so we live. To my surprise, Ukiki and the Annihilate are speed type, which makes sense as I don't do EV training during my runs. Annihilate wins the speed tie, goes for a close combat, and leaves us on just 1 HP. And this is a legit 1 HP survive and not a friendship one. Our Rage Fist is not enough to finish off her Monkey Pig Ghost. Our 4th for Eri is Lucario, but we easily outspeed this thing and destroy it with a double stab, super effective, expert belt boosted close combat. Alright, she only has 1 Pokemon left. Obviously, it's the Starmobile because why wouldn't it be? I can obviously not stay in with only 1 HP, so I need to switch. And being the knucklehead I am, I switch out into Metal Mario. Metal Mario almost gets clean one-shot by a Combat Torque. That was a very bad move. Obviously I can't stay in again, so I need to switch again. This time I make a much better choice and switch out into Buzzy Beetle. Buzzy Beetle only takes 18 damage on the switch in from a high horsepower. Now the Calf Starmobile has stamina, which means whenever it's hit, its defense raises. So the best thing to handle this thing is to set up. It hits us with a spin out that doesn't even take us below half, and lowers its speed as we set up a Swords Dance, raising our attack 2 stages. With the car's speed now lowered, we outspeed and set up a second Swords Dance on the following turn to +4. The car then goes for a shift gear, raising its speed by 2 stages and attack by 1. Now the car is back to being faster than us, so it sets up a shift gear as we set up one final Swords Dance. After we finish setting up, the car decides to keep setting up. It goes for another shift gear, raising its attack and speed even further. This thing is starting to get scary. We go for a Brick Break that deals around 60% to the car and triggers the car's stamina ability to raise its defense. The following turn, the Starmobile finally decides to put all those boosts to use, going for a spin out and taking us down to just 19 HP. We then eat our Citrus Berry to heal up a little bit of health, but honestly that isn't important as a final Brick Break finishes off the car and wins us this battle. Honestly, we were in a lot of danger of being swept there if the Starmobile crit us. Luckily that didn't happen, so now we have all the badges, meaning we're ready to face the Elite Four. Just kidding, we have to face Clive before we do that. I mean, Cavill, Clive, whoever you want to call him. Let's go. Clive leads out the fight with Oranguru as we lead off with Meta Mario yet again. We start the fight off with a Dark Pulse that takes the orangutan down to the orange, as the monkey hits us with a yawn, meaning we will fall asleep at the end of the next turn. A second Dark Pulse can then finish off the Great Ape with a crit that didn't even matter. We then fall asleep, but honestly that didn't matter because we needed to switch out anyway because Houndoom threatens us with Fire Blast. I swap out into Rockhawk, and Houndoom just misses a Fire Blast, so it didn't really matter anyway. Houndoom has awful defense, so it easily goes down to a single Brick Break on the following turn. Clavel then sends out Abomasnow, and I understand it has super effective ice moves against my flying type, but it's quad weak to flying press, so obviously we can outspeed and absolutely annihilate it. Out next is Gyarados, so we hard switch into Amp, who gets taken all the way to the red by a critical hit Aqua Tail. Honestly, we aren't in much danger, as we can outspeed next turn, go for a quad super effective Double Shock, and absolutely annihilate the Gyarados. Clive then brings out his next Pokemon, Poltegeist. And yes, this thing's name is Poltegeist. Being so low, we have to switch out. We go out into Okiki, who takes massive damage from a Shadow Ball on the switch. But because we took damage on the switch, our Rage Fist is now powered up, meaning it can easily one-shot the Tea Kettle. It's now time for Clive's ace, Mouscarada. With Okiki so low, obviously we have to switch, so we go out into Rockhawk, who takes about a third from a Shadow Claw on the switch. With Hawlucha having base speed of 118, I assumed we would easily outspeed Meowscarada. But I was wrong. Meowscarada has base speed of 123, meaning that it moves first and kills my beautiful friend Rockhawk. This was honestly a terrible misplay by me. With the free switch, I go into Kleptoad. We then Terra into a pure poison type, giving Meowscarada no good choices of moves. But the cat misses a play rough anyway, so it didn't really matter. A double stab poison jab, which does rhyme, is then enough to get a clean one shot on the cat and beat Clive. Clavel. Clive. I don't care. Call him whatever you want. I know we didn't have Rockhawk that long, but I'm honestly extremely sad that I let him go for no reason. With Rockhawk dead, I need to replace him, so why not replace him with the other flying fighter we have, Birdo. Alright, no more horsing around. It's actually time to go take on the Elite Four. The first member of the Elite Four is Rika, and she uses ground types. She leads off with Whiscash as we lead off with Ukiki. Ukiki is much faster than this fish, so a quad super effective Seed Bomb easily takes it out. Out next is Camerupt, and it takes neutral damage from Seed Bomb, so instead we go for a close combat that gets a one-shot on the Volcano Pokemon. Camel thing, whatever it is. Rika then sends out Donphan, and this thing is sturdy, so we can't just one-shot it. We use U-turn with Ukiki to deal some chip damage and switch out into Birdo, who is immune to the incoming Earthquake. Honestly, immunities are so strong in Nuzlocke. Now that Donphan will go for a Stone Edge, we can switch back into Okiki, who takes next to no damage from the resisted attack. We now stay in and go for a Seed Bomb that I thought for sure would get the KO, but the damn Donphan lives on just red HP and hits us with an Earthquake that takes us to the orange. And if you're thinking, what was the point of switching out? Don't forget, Close Combat had lowered our defenses a couple turns ago. Another Seed Bomb then finishes off the Rolling Elephant. This brings out Rika's third Pokemon, Dugtrio. And honestly, I think we can survive even a critical hit Earthquake from this thing. So we stay in, tank the Earthquake, and go down to just 40 HP. Then we can easily take it out with a single Seed Bomb because this thing has terrible defense. Outlast is Rika's ace, Clodsire. She tears it into a full ground type as I outspeed and U-turn out for some chip damage. With the U-turn, we switch out into Birdo. Rika then says, and I quote, "Watch your step, because things are about to get a bit shaky," and then misses an Earthquake due to Birdo being immune. Great trash talk. The next turn I use Brave Bird, but the Poof Pokemon uses Protect, delaying the inevitable. Next turn it doesn't use Protect. So we can connect with our Brave Bird that just misses out on the kill, leaving the Poop Pokemon with what looks like about 1 HP. But the strongest attack this thing can hit us with is Liquidation, and that isn't nearly strong enough to get the kill, so next turn we can finish it off with a... Dang it, stop using Protect! After this turn of Protect, Double Kick finishes it off and wins us this battle. God, why are you so annoying with your Clodsire? After destroying Riku, our next challenge is a literal child. It's the second Elite Four member, Poppy, who specializes in Steel type. And we have the type advantage here, so this should be quite easy. Poppy leads off with Caparaja as we lead off with Ukiki. Ukiki outspeeds and absolutely destroys the Steel Elephant with a single close combat. Poppy's second Pokemon out is Corviknight, who threatens with a Brave Bird. I know that we outspeed, so I U-turn to switch out into Amp, who takes neutral damage from a Brave Bird thanks to his electric typing. Even with this being neutral, it still did over half damage because of how strong of a move Brave Bird is. But next turn, a stab super effective Double Shock is enough to take out the Metal Birdie. Third out is Bronzong, so we Terra into an electric type so that Zen Headbutt won't hit for super effective damage. We then go for a Crunch on Bronzong that takes it to the orange. It then goes for the Zen Headbutt as predicted that takes us to the red. A follow-up second Crunch the following turn then finishes off the Bronzong. Fourth for Poppy is Magnezone, and this thing has Sturdy, so we can't stay in. I use Volt Switch to break Magnezone's Sturdy and send out Ukiki for free on a Tri-Attack that he is immune to. A single close combat is then enough to finish off the Magnezone, and Poppy's ace Tinkaton suffers the exact same fate because, like a fool, she Terras into a completely Steel type, meaning a close combat can cleanly get the one-shot. God, children are so bad at Pokemon fighting. I don't even understand it. Third up is Larry, and he is going to be much more challenging now. Last time we fought him, he was using normal types, giving us the type advantage. Now, he's using flying types, meaning he has the type advantage. It's going to be very hard to get out of this fight without losing any team members. Larry's lead Pokemon for this battle is Tropius. Our lead Pokemon, Birdo. Birdo is faster than Tropius, so we can knock it out with a single Brave Bird. Obviously, after taking a full health bar from a Pokemon with a recoil move, we take a good chunk of damage from the recoil. Larry's next Pokemon is Staraptor, and this thing can one-shot a lot of my team with a Brave Bird. So much like last battle, I switch out into Amp on a Brave Bird who takes over half again even though it's neutral. Now this next move might look familiar as I outspeed and knock out the bird with a 120 base power stab super effective Double Shock. The downside to this move is that we lose our electric type, so Amp will now be taking super effective damage from flying type moves. Larry then sends out his next Pokemon, Altaria, who takes neutral damage from electric moves thanks to its dragon typing. Knowing this thing is going to go for a Moonblast, I Volt Switch out in the Metal Mario, who tanks the Moonblast fairly well, but gets his special attack dropped, which is super annoying. Next turn we go for a Dragon Pulse that takes Altaria down to the orange as a Flamethrower fails to crit, so we survive in the orange and finish it off the following turn with another Dragon Pulse. Larry then sends out Oricorio. We're too low to stay in now, so we switch out into Kleptoad, who gets hit with a Revolution Dance on the switch for less than half. Predicting a flying move, I Terra into a pure poison type so that we will take neutral damage from it. As predicted, the yellow bird uses an air slash that takes us to 62 HP as a double stab poison jab takes her to the orange. Knowing that we most likely have to make a sacrifice here, I leave Kleptoad in, and because we stay in, a Revolution Dance easily takes us out. Poor Froggo. Kleptoad's sacrifice lets us make a free switch into Amp, who can outspeed and finish off the Pom-Pom bird with a Crunch. Larry's ace is Flamingo, but even without our electric typing, we can still get a clean one-shot with a double shot to take down our best friend Larry. God, I hate that I have to take this man down twice just to beat this game. It's time for the last Elite Four member, Hassel, the Dragon User, and we only have 5 Pokemon left to face this challenge. Hassel leads off with Noivern as we lead off with Metal Mario. This bad thing is fast, so it goes first, it hits us with a Super Fang, and as always, it does exactly half of our life. We then strike back with a Dragon Pulse that can get a clean one-shot on the Sound Bath thanks to a held Life Orb. Out second is Dragalge, and I think I can one-shot this thing if I stay in, so I do, and I go for a Dragon Pulse, but it survives with way more HP than I expected, and this means it's the end of the road for Metal Mario. Dragalge goes for a Hydro Pump and misses, so we survive. Take that, you piece of poop. Wow, we are getting insanely lucky on this run. Because of the missed Hydro Pump, next turn we can finish it off with another Dragon Pulse. Third out is Flapple, and this time I'm actually sure, I'm actually positive that we can get a one-shot on it with a Dragon Pulse. And I'm right. Okay, don't worry. Whew, I got worried that I was wrong there. Hassel's next Pokemon is Haxorus, and we are much too low to stay in now, so we switch out into Ukiki, who tanks a Dragon Call on the switch. We then go for an Ice Punch that takes Haxorus down to a sliver. And it also gets to freeze, which is awesome. Honestly, our luck is awesome. Well, not that awesome, because it immediately defrosts next turn and hits us with another Dragon Claw, taking us to the orange. With Haxorus having such low health, we can finish it off with a U-turn to get a free switch out into Amp as Hassel sends out his ace, Baxcalibur. He then tears this thing into a 100% Dragon type. We then go for a Play Rough that does over half, and the Baxcalibur strikes back with a double stab, 120 base power, Glaive Rush, which I was so sure was going to get a clean Oko and knock out my Amp. But, like the absolute monster Amp is, he lives on just 2 HP, which means we can finish off that damn pseudo-legendary with a close combat next turn. Wow. Amp, you monster, I can't believe you survived that. This run has made me absolutely fall in love with Pawmi, and I usually hate Pikachu clones, but this one's taken my heart. Alright, it's time to face the chump of the Paldean region, Geeta, and she really doesn't worry me much. Honestly, Geeta is not a very good trainer. She leads off with Espathra as we lead off with Ukiki. Espathra outspeeds and hits us with a Luminous Crash that does over half and lowers our special defense 2 stages. With Rage Fist powered up, we can now get a clean Oko, or one-hit KO as the kids say, on Espathra. Geeta's next Pokemon out is Go-Go, and I make a misplay here for sure. I mistakenly think I can one-shot this thing with an Ice Punch. So I stay in and go for that Ice Punch, but the thing lives in the red. A Play Rough for sure is going to kill Ukiki now. But for the second time in this run, a Pokemon lives on just 1 HP thanks to its friendship and not wanting to see us sad. Honestly, it's crazy how lucky we are getting. Out third is King Gambit, and this thing is quad weak to fighting, so we can easily just take it down with a single close combat. The Chump's fourth Pokemon is Veluza, and this thing has priority Aqua Jet, so we have to hard switch out here. We go on into Amp, who takes a soft Aqua Jet pretty easily. We're then able to outspeed and kill this fish with a Double Shock. This brings out Avalugg. Avalugg is a bulky girl, so I doubt I can get a one-shot. But in a moment of reckless abandon, I stay in, go for a close combat, then misses out on the KO, and lowers our defenses. I hold my breath as Avalugg goes for a body press, and we survive on just 16 HP. Whew, that was a close one. We then finish off the Iceberg with a Volt Switch, and we take our free switch out into Meadow Mario to face her ace, Glimmora. And you think the champion of a region would be smarter than this, but in the face of a fighting type Pokemon, she Terras into a full rock type. I wonder if I'm going to be able to knock this thing out. Yep, that was easy. Honestly, get good, Geeta. After the Geeta fight, we have 2 major fights left. I need to fill Kleptoad's spot for those fights, so I add Bully back to the team. I wanted to include the Arven and Penny fights in this video as well, but after the Elite Four, my Pokemon are just too high of a level, and both of them don't really have that great of teams, so they're super easy fights. So let's go to the real championship fight of this game, Nimona. She leads off with Lycanroc as we lead off with Amp. Lycanroc is not the bulkiest mon, so a Brick Brace can easily take it out in one shot. Orthworm is out next and threatens Amp with an Earthquake, so we switch into Birdo, who as we know by now is immune. Honestly, I should have retaught Birdo low kick for this fight, but I totally forgot, so I have to go with double kick, which is pretty weak for this stage of the game. It does, however, do over half as an Iron Tail hits back for less than half on us, but lowers our defense. Meaning next turn, a second double kick would finish off Wormy. Birdo, being a flying type, now baits out Nemona's Pawmot. And honestly, I made a pretty big mistake here. I know that Pawmot will be using an electric move here, so I should switch out into Amp, who has Volt Absorb. But instead, I switch up to Bully, and this ends up being a huge mistake, because the Double Shock combined with a next turn outspeed close combat ends Bully's whole career. But not really, but I'll get back to that. I now switch into Amp like a genius, and I clean one-hit the Pawmot with a Play Rough. Nemona then sends out the Dunsparce next. At full health, I feel safe staying in even with the Dunsparce having Drill Run. We outspeed and go for a Brick Break, and to my surprise, get a clean Oko on the Dunsparce. Goodra comes out next, and we also Oko it, this time with a Play Rough. Damn, Pawmot really just got 3 Okos in a row. It's time for Nemona's ace, Skeleturge. And as usual, Terra types it into a pure Fire Boy. Turn 1, we go for Double Shock, dealing a little less than half to the Croc, as it strikes back with a neutral Earth Power that also does less than half. Not wanting to risk a crit, I use Volt Switch to switch out, doing some chip and bringing out Ukiki, who can tank a Torch Song easily, and the next turn, outspeeds and finishes off the battle with an Earthquake on the Skeleturge. Alright, with Nemona down, we're ready to go face AI Sada. And I will tell you right now, without a doubt, I was not prepared for this fight at all. But before I begin the fight, I have to make one little confession. I made a mistake here. I forgot that Bully died in the battle before and used him in the Sada battle as well. But honestly, if I didn't misplace my Ralt, it would have done a much better job than this thing does in this fight. And also, feel free to leave a comment and tell me how much of a big stinky cheater I am. Honestly, where did I put that Ralt? She leads off with Slitherwing as we lead off with Bully. Yeah, shut up, I know. I outspeed, go for a Zen Headbutt, and deal over half to the fighting bug type. And we get the flinch. God, Bully has been so useless this whole time. Why does he have to be useful when he's supposed to be dead? Just pretend like in the last battle I used Amp's Revival Blessing to bring him back to life. That sounds legal. Just pretend like that happened. Up next is Screamtail, who is a speedy mon. The speedy Jigglypuff variant goes first, hits a play rough, dealing just under half, as we strike back with a Smart Strike, also dealing just under half. Following turn, another play rough takes us to just 8 HP as we heal a bit from a Citrus Berry that's not going to be very useful. A second Smart Strike then takes the Fluttertail to the red. And now, for the first time this run, Bully goes down. It's truly sad to see him die for the first time this run. Seriously, the first time. Don't worry, this time I promise he isn't coming back. With a free switch, I send out Buzzy Beetle, but the damn Screamtail is just so fast and hits us with a fourth play rough in a row, but it doesn't get the kill, so we can finish it off with a Throat Chop. God, Throat Chop sounds like the absolute meanest move in Pokemon. Like, just visualize it. Third out for the AI is Fluttermane, who threatens with a Mystical Fire, so we have to hard switch out into Ukiki, who takes it pretty well. Fluttermane then goes for a Shadow Ball that takes us all the way down to 8 HP, but we survive, and thanks to the 2 hits, our Rage Fist is absolutely powered up and can easily one-shot the Fluttermane. Out fourth is Brute Bonnet, and this thing has Sucker Punch, so obviously we have to switch out now. But thanks to it going for Sucker Punch, it is a free switch out into Birdo. The following turn, the Brute Bonnet uses the Sucker Punch and does a chunk of damage, but we hit back with a Brave Bird that gets a clean one-shot as we take some recoil damage. Up next for Sada is Sandy Shocks. Feeling like I don't have any good switches, I stay in with Birdo and go down to a discharge from Sandy Shocks. I send out Okiki next, and I make a calculation error here. Earthquake is a super effective move, giving it an effective power of 200. But Rage Fist is charged all the way up to 150 base power thanks to being hit twice. Once you add in the stab bonus, that makes it an effective power of 225. This means that Rage Fist was the better choice of a move to use. This proves to be extremely costly as the Earthquake barely misses out in the KO and Ukiki goes down to an Earth Power. I bring out Amp to finish off the Sandy Shocks with a Brick Break, and this just leaves one Pokemon left, Roaring Moon. And this thing is scary AF. But Amp has Play Rough, which is quad super effective against this thing, so unless I forgot to give it an Air Balloon for this exact situation, then we'll be completely fine. Well, I forgot to give it an air balloon for this exact situation, so we go down to an Earthquake. This is going to make this a lot closer than it needed to be. My only chance now is to switch out into Metal Mario and hope that Aura Sphere is enough to get a clean one-shot. But first, to make things a little bit more dramatic, I switch out into Buzzy Beetle, who dies immediately because he gets outsped. Now I only have one Pokemon left. Is everyone feeling the very real drama that I have created? I now send out my very last Pokemon, Metal Mario. It's now or nothing. I Terra into a pure fighting type for double stab on my fighting moves and to make the incoming Earthquake neutral. Roaring Moon then outspeeds and goes for an Earthquake that drains our health so fast. And it gets a critical hit, so this could kill us. But we live on just 7 HP. Will an Aura Sphere be enough to get us a clean one-shot and win us this run? Yes, it is. That was insane. I did not prepare very well for that last fight, and I'm honestly a little upset with myself for accidentally using Bully after his death in the Nemona fight. But maybe after I finish all the other runs, I'll revisit this one so I can make sure to clear my name and make this run clean. If you made it this far in the video, please consider hitting the subscribe button, and remember, shorts are comfy and easy to wear.